to episode 51 of the Bithell Games Podcast. I'm Alexander Slawinski.
And I'm Mike Bithell.
Each week we talk games, what it's like to make games, and the random stuff we don't find time to talk about because we are playing and or making games. Show notes. Our Game of the Year episode is coming up next week. Everyone on the team here will be sharing their thoughts, but send us your top 5 to contact@bithellgames.com. That's contact@bithellgames.com, and we'll incorporate that into the show somehow. Haven't really decided on that part yet.
You have no plan, right? That's my assumption of this. Okay, good.
But if they send in their top 5, I will figure out a way to get that in there. Also, next week's episode is our last one of the year. And at episode 52, it means we've been doing this for an entire year straight.
What a horrible waste of time.
Thanks for all your downloads, letters, tweets. When we started the show, we had just finished Volume. We were in production on Coda, and Earthshape was a prototype Mike was messing around with. And now Coda is out on PSVR. Earthshape is available on Daydream, Google's VR platform. And we're getting ready for whatever happens next. So thank you for joining us on the ride. What are you playing, Mike?
Dishonored. I've gotten into it. Yeah. It's really good. It's really good. I'm having a good time with it. It's got a I'm playing as Emily, so I'm wondering how much the game difference how much it plays differently between Emily and Corvo, depending on that choice. But so far, yeah, it's great. It's got the world building, the storytelling is just as good as it was. Mechanically, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying messing up more than I did in the last game, and I think I'm playing it much more loosely than I was before. That comes into actually the other thing which I've been playing, which is finally finished Hitman. I went back to that because I realized, oh god, I've got 2 more episodes that I never played because of just I think Colorado came out, I want to say like literally when we were finishing off Earthshape, and that just I missed that one and then I fell out of the pattern. And those 2 last levels of Hitman are mind-bogglingly good.
So you did well on Colorado. I did not do well on Colorado, but apparently you did really well on Colorado.
I made a decision in Colorado, which I think makes Colorado fun, and I would even argue perhaps is intentional on the part of the developers. I made the decision that in Colorado, for the first time in the game, I was up against people who were all bad guys. So I made a decision that I was not going to go crazy, but I was okay with killing people. And suddenly I started using the silenced pistol for the first time in the game. So I mean, I only killed a few people, but I was like, these are mercenaries. This is war. This is fine. Whereas
you killed people, yes, but they were all bad.
But it's a weird thing with that level, because I think in other levels, like you're up against like police officers and security people, it felt a bit. It's a similar thing in Watch Dogs 2, where there's just a lot of ambiguously like just guys doing their job being security guys, but these were all like terrorist mercenaries. So I was like, you know what? A couple of them get, silenced pistol through a window. That's going to be fine. The other really cool thing about that level is because you have the 4 bad guys, there's a lot of really interesting paths to go down and kind of, what do they call them in the design? I saw in the credits, it referenced, is it trail? But like basically those designed paths I went down. And with Colorado, I specifically like just tried to maximize the number of those I was doing. Also, you can kill 2 people at once in that level, which is great. So yeah, no, that was really good. And then the final level is just amazing. That sci-fi the element of sci-fi with it, with the AI, and the fact that there's a lot of very interesting mechanics coming out of that.
The thing about Colorado is that one didn't feel Hitman to me.
It didn't, did it?
Because it's so this is something I talk a lot about with Mike. It's
was it not editorial?
It's right. It's not elegant. Like
it's not got that wealth and But I think that was something that was in the. I think that's something that's.
It's not Lux.
A lot of Hitman wasn't though. When you go back, like a lot of with Blood Money, they were all bad, really bad people you were killing. And it played with that. Like there was the fetishist, although I guess the fetishists were
the fetishist is definitely that's Lux. Like a high rise, a whoopsie doo party. Yeah, that's takes money. Like,
but I agree that Colorado felt more. It was really. Did you? Because I always make a point of always watching the credits for games, because I've been on enough of those, page 27 of those credits kind of thing. So I always try and watch them. And this time I was actually looking because I was interested in how Hitman was made, and it was hilarious. With every other level, you had maybe 2 environment artists. There were obviously lots of environment artists that work in a more general sense, but 2 on each level doing the bespoke stuff. Colorado, I think, had 8 environment artists. And that tells you a lot about how different all the artwork in Colorado was, that they had to make all of this stuff that wasn't anywhere else in the game. But I liked that, and I think, honestly, even though the look of it was different, I did love the specific kind of...
Wait, now you got me curious about this. Is that a trick on how to tell if a certain level is just completely... different from other ones?
It's tough. Honestly, I'm making a massive assumption there. It could well be that there's, the scheduling meant that there were 2 different teams had to work on it. There could be lots of reasons. Right. Credits are not a very good indicator necessarily of how many people worked on the game, because people come in, they leave, legacy stuff. But it was funny that Colorado was noticeably a much bigger team than any of the other episodes. And I do wonder if that was to do with the amount of bespoke artwork. But then the last one felt like proper Hitman. That felt it actually made me wonder about if I'd enjoy a sci-fi Hitman, because there were definitely elements in there that were pushing the ceiling of what was realistic, right?
No, that was far enough for me. A hospital retreat that is run by an AI, and only the most professional, only the richest clients can go there to get, whatever work that they need done. And, it's on the edge of legality. That is Hitman. That is pure Hitman. It
was pure. And the way, I don't know how you took out the guy, but I destroyed the heart. So I managed to kill him by stopping him from having the thing he needed to survive, which I thought was one of the most obtuse and brilliant assassinations. You literally take the heart and throw it against a wall. I was just that's the perfect Hitman assassination. I didn't even have to be in the same building as the guy I was killing. I just had to prevent him from being saved. And the voice clip that plays from it's Diana, right?
Diana, yeah.
The voice from Diana, which is basically, through your actions, he's now as good as dead. It's just a fantastic, that dark humor. And yeah, I won't spoil next week, but it's definitely going to be up there for me in terms of the games of the year. It's so good, and it's such
I know Nick is way into it, so I'm sure it's on Nick's top 5 as well for the year.
As someone who's who genuinely Blood Money is probably in the top 3 for me in all of history of games. I absolutely adore the Hitman franchise. To have it come back, I feel this is probably how Star Wars fans felt watching Force Awakens, right? It felt like someone finally got why I was a fan of Hitman.
Are you sort of bummed out now that you don't get to be, make that Hitman spiritual successor in 2020? You don't get to walk into a publisher and be like, give me 10 million to make a Hitman spiritual successor.
Yeah, no one gets Blood Money now, so unfortunately I very much do. I know playing Hitman is a lot easier than making Hitman, so I think I've probably won. How about you? What have you been playing?
So I have been finally wrapping some stuff up that has just been sitting there needing to get finished. I need to finish my contract. By that I mean Witcher. So I finished Witcher Blood and Wine finally. That is the second expansion, and by expansion I mean almost entirely new game. That thing, massive.
The way you describe that game just sounds ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I just, as someone who now, I would say has a beginner's understanding of how one makes video games, that I can't even conceive of.
Well, they're much better at it than us. I think that's
holy
the
wow!
main angle. Yeah,
I just want to. If I could just watch them for a year, just to see how any of this stuff. And granted, CD Projekt has been on the Witcher series for 10 years now. So and many of the team members have grown with that series as it has come along. But just looking at Blood and Wine and Beauclair, it is not only beautiful, the amount of work and missions that are in there is is extreme. It's a whole other game already, and a game that is gigantic to begin with. So anyway, finished Blood and Wine, and then what I also really like about Blood and Wine is that there are things that happen in there that you can tell the team is testing out new stuff, because you don't see it in like the normal Witcher game. So they definitely are experimenting with things, and I if some of that stuff is in Cyber 2077, that would be awesome. But yeah, it is. If you enjoy RPGs on any level and are looking to just get immersed in a world for 200 hours, Witcher 3, I think it's like, I don't even think it's $60 anymore. Like, just, of course, go down that road. The other thing that I played was the Titanfall 2 campaign, after hearing everyone say how amazing that single player campaign is.
One of us. How'd you get on with it?
It is a fantastic single player campaign. It really well thought out. The thing that would spoil it if I talk about it has been done in other games in the past, but here it is completely refined, and you just it's effortless. Like, you just bounce back and forth, and it works exceptionally well. And yeah, Titanfall 2 just deserves more than it got this year.
I feel like that one is going to be a slow burner. I think it's going to have. I think it's going to be a game that people reference. I think you're going to see it on a lot of retrospective things in 5-10 years from now. Like, it's going to be. I mean, ironically, I think it's going to be the Zelda Link to the Past kind of thing. There's going to be a groundswell of opinion on this one. It's going to be very fondly remembered, I think. I hope we get Titanfall 3, because there's clearly some amazing. I mean, from a single player perspective, some fantastic level designers there and some fantastically creative people. I didn't play the multiplayer. Did you play the multiplayer? You're more of a multiplayer guy than me.
So I am a multiplayer person, but the problem was that because originally when I got the game, I'm not going to touch the single player, just like I didn't touch the single player in Battlefield 1, which I've also been told is a mistake, and I will go and I will play Battlefield 1
single player. It's great. It's not
player.
Titanfall 2 great, but it's great.
So I will go back and I will do that, but I tried to play the Titanfall 2 multiplayer, and it just ran at a terrible frame rate, and I think that was just because of the launch window. But I haven't gotten my friends together to play it again since, and I've just been down the Battlefield foxhole. That works. And just playing so much Battlefield, pretty much 2 to 3 times a night now. It's just get everyone together and play Battlefield. It's so good. It's so good. It's like, it's Bad Company 2 good again, and I'm looking forward to seeing when they start announcing the DLC, the new maps and all that stuff, which will be early next year, is my understanding. And now it's time for what's going on at the studio. Mike, you've been out and about.
I have. I've done very little programming this week, which makes me feel incredibly anxious. But yes, I've been out doing things. I guess the main thing was I did a panel at BAFTA on Tuesday. I want to say Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday.
And what does BAFTA stand for?
The British Academy of Film and Television Arts, brackets, and also games, but,
whatever. And also games.
In fairness, you can't blame them for, but no, they are very much what's the name of the academy that does the Oscars? I only know them as the Academy. Do they have a name?
The Academy of Film, Television, Arts and Sciences?
Oh, it is that something. Okay, so basically that's the British version of that, and they're very good actually.
Feel free to put in the comments that I totally got wrong, but I'm sticking with it.
But so that's what the BAFTAs are. They're the British equivalent of that, and they're very good. They do events year round.
Also, BAFTAG isn't as sexy. Let's be honest.
I think it's gonna be a while till we get into that acronym. In fairness, but they do loads of great game events through the year. There's a very good BAFTA Awards, which is the kind of awards for specifically for games. Which is the sort of
BAFTA.
But it's that's great because that puts the developers front and center. It's a big deal. It's very glitzy. It's very nice. Not sure it's something that would be as entertaining for kind of your regular kind of gamer to watch, but feels good. Feels like a lovely event to go to. I've given an award. I gave the story award to. This is embarrassing. I'm going to forget it. The game about the first World War platformer about the dog. Ubisoft made it. Lovely guys. Valiant Hearts. That's
Valiant Hearts.
So I gave that BAFTA a couple of years ago, and they're just great. They're really cool, and I'm a member. And they're very nice people.
I actually like. So this is something that's bothered me for a long time. I actually do appreciate. That BAFTA exists, that the UK has this sort of internal awards giving apparatus, because in the States we don't really have that. Like we've got our Jeff Keighley show.
Well, I was gonna say Jeff's giving it a good go.
We have our Jeff Keighley show, but that's not really BAFTA, right? That's not really the Oscars.
I saw the Kind of Funny guys kind of comparing it to like the MTV Movie Awards. I thought that was a valid kind of it's kind of placed there. It's much more for the audience than the people getting the awards, if that makes sense, which I think is a good thing. I think that makes sense, right?
But we really don't have that, and it also doesn't help because we have a far more adversarial relationship in the States. I would think like
the media establishment, you mean?
Yeah, there's just a far more adversarial sort of tone to things, maybe because of size, maybe because of regional differences and everything else. But I actually do appreciate that. I would love to, when moving to London, I would love to be a BAFTA member and be like, hey, let's have a meeting at BAFTA and just like sit there and, chat. Like that would be lovely.
It is nice.
Because private clubs in London, man. That's the best thing about London. Them private clubs.
It's simultaneously the best and the worst thing about London in some ways, but that's
But it's as an American,
we invented aloofness. Like that's our history. It's fine.
It's not something that for us. It's like, oh, we're even having a meeting at Starbucks, Dunkin's. You get to say, want to have a meeting at BAFTA? That sounds impressive. Like, good on you.
They are very nice there, and their coffee's good too.
So yes, panels and appearances.
So we did a panel. It was about fan communities and the kind of the relationship between developers and fans, and the way fans are important. It was fascinating. It was utterly brilliant. I was definitely the least interesting person on the panel, which is my favorite kind of panel. I just sat back and enjoyed listening to everyone else.
If you'd like to see an hour and a half of Mike doing great restraint, it is available on the BAFTA YouTube channel.
Is it on YouTube now? Is it? It's on Twitch. Okay. I thought it was great, and it was it wasn't just me being restrained, because sometimes I often over talk on these panels, so I do try and make an effort to let other people speak and not be. But genuinely on this one, everyone else was just much more interesting than me, and I just thought I'd rather listen to them talking. I could put in a few opinions, but it was great and just really inspiring, interesting people. I do like panels. Panels are great because they don't require as much prep as doing a talk. I get to, rather than just me talking and just me giving my opinions, I actually get to learn some stuff as well and listen to other people. It's definitely my favorite format for doing these kind of public speaky kind of things.
And it was hosted by
Ellie Gibson.
She's fantastic.
So do you know? Did you ever cross paths with her in her journalisting days?
Hilariously, I always saw the byline. I was aware of her. Everyone always spoke incredibly highly of her. Never met her. Like she's again one of those people. She's exactly one of those people where when you turn to me and you introduce someone to me and you're like, well, you two surely know each other, and it's just like we've just been two satellites that just never like crossed.
Yeah, I mean, she
is one of those.
She's been around forever. She used to, not forever, that's unfair. But she was a Eurogamer back in the day and doing great work there. She's now moved away from that and doing more kind of comedy and comedy writing. And she co-hosts a show on British TV with Dara O'Brien, which is a video games panel show. You became very into panel shows when you were over in the UK.
Love panel shows.
So yeah, definitely add that one to your list.
Just put Dave TV in front of me and just let it go.
It's a Dave TV original series.
Of course.
Obviously. Of course it is.
Because Dave TV is just panel shows. Dave TV to me is just a big hotel bed, pecan cookies, and just watching Dave TV all night.
I don't understand. Well, I kind of understand why the panel show just is so to American listeners. Panel shows in the UK are big in terms of TV comedy. They're much bigger than say sitcoms over here. And it's basically you have a host, and you usually have a fake kind of quiz construct where you've got two teams trying to win a competition of some kind, and it's just them joking and riffing on a topic. So there's ones that are themed around the news, there's ones that are themed around general knowledge, there's ones that are themed around sports, and now there's one that's kind of about games. That's not less of a panel show. It's got lots of different formats in it.
For some of our more aged listeners, the McLaughlin Group, which is a very serious version of a panel show on PBS, and then the original Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher, which he lost.
Bill Maher would make a great panel show host.
Yeah,
I can see that working.
But yeah, that was the format of his show in the during the 90s.
Okay, so yeah, so it's a thing that kind of defines British comedy, and yeah, it's funny watching Alexander get into it. Big QI fan now, aren't you?
I love the QI.
Are you a Stephen Fry person or a Sandy Toxic person?
I am a both of them person. I mean, I only finally saw her hosting it when I was over there this time.
Well, she only started this year. So.
And she's fantastic. Like she doesn't miss a beat. Like she's if Stephen Fry is your like, you know, is your like granddad, that sounds terrible. But like she's your grandma, like the kooky version of both. Like they're mirrors of each other. It's amazing.
I love the industry insight that we're providing with this breakdown of British panel show comedy. It's great.
Well, I want to go back to Gibson for a second because you were talking about her good work. And the reason I bring up Gibson is because another games journalist has also sort of broken off and done some amazing work lately on that side of the Atlantic.
Daniel Dwyer.
Yes.
Yeah, well, he's I think I name dropped him in the BAFTA panel, if memory serves.
I believe you did too.
I'm a big fan. Have you watched his Doom stuff this week?
I have not, but everyone keeps telling me to watch it. So
it's so good.
That's kind of my plan for like today.
It's a great hour. I think it was 3 episodes, about 20 minutes each, half an hour each, and you just watch it and you're like, why is this not a documentary on TV? Why is this not a thing that exists? Like it was fascinating. It was just so it's about the most recent Doom game. The first episode is about the failed prototype, so the Doom that was going to be, which was the kind of Call of Duty Doom, as I think the fans called it. And with loads of like prototype footage of that, loads of talking from the devs about how that failed, basically. Really great post-mortem. The second episode is focused on the opening of the game. It's a half-hour deep dive on how the game handles its first 20 minutes, and it's brilliant, and it's just talented people describing their craft. And then the final episode is, I don't think this is unfair, but it feels like the leftover bits. So it's a bit about the music, a bit about the story, and just lots of very cool stuff about how the game was built. So yeah, it's utterly fantastic, and I don't know, it feels like you watch it and you wonder why this doesn't exist. Why is this not something we can have for everything? I became a Patreon subscriber. Is it a Patreon subscriber or a Patreon backer or whatever? I became one of those because I just want more like this in the world. So he's doing great work, and the kind of work that I guess can only exist in this format, right? Because you would not be able to convince
you couldn't,
a big outlet to do this.
If you work at a major gaming outlet, given the way the cycles work there and the access and availability and the expectation, that's the other thing here, is just from what I've heard of what's there, and it's interesting because Gibson brought this up during the panel. She went straight for like, am I even relevant anymore? Which is great. Like, genuinely, like, watch the BAFTA. It's definitely on the BAFTA Twitch page. I think I said YouTube before. Sorry, still get the two confused. But it's definitely on the BAFTA Twitch page. But she does ask a question about relevancy, and then you see something like that, and you go, okay, that is certainly what those who have had a career already can have access to and have the ability to do that they can't currently do at these mega outlets, and that these mega outlets just aren't interested in, because the problem with mega outlets is features. Features don't get clicks, and that's not. And I really didn't,
unless they're controversial, right?
Well, that's the thing I really didn't appreciate by some of the people on the panel, was that they think the idea, they think clicks come before concept. It's that, it's not done because it's not going to get the clicks, and it's just, well, no, even if you did it on that site, the audience there won't be interested in it. So you do have to break off and do something like this, but that's a huge risk, massive. So, I absolutely have to hand it to Danny that, he went off and he did this, and it's being successful. But there is the blueprint there of, and we've brought this up on the show also very recently, of Aaron Signal and Super Bunny Hop and guidebook, toolmakers
to the game designer's toolkit. That's
game designer's toolkit,
Game maker's toolkit. Sorry, game maker's toolkit.
And I believe he just recently
quit his day job as well. Yeah. So, I think we're heading into an era where this stuff is viable. The thing that I think is most exciting about it is that it's not promo. You look at the Doom videos, and it could, he's there in the offices at id talking to the developers. And I think a lot of people could take a very cursory look at the show and go, well, you could do this as a making of documentary. We did it with Volume. We had Lee wrote the book about it, and he did interviews. He had access to everyone. He was able to write a pretty interesting book about how Volume was made. But it was made and paid for by the people making Volume. So it was never going to be distant from it. We didn't have any distance at all. It was on some level a promotional object. Whereas with this, he's done a half hour. The opening half hour of this documentary is about how the first idea they had was awful and failed and just completely kind of misfired. It's loving, it's respectful. It explains how that failure helped to make the game better, obviously. But you don't get that at the start of your making of documentary. No one, you don't watch a movie making of documentary and see 20 minutes devoted to the first shoots where they had to go and reshoot because stuff went wrong and they'd misjudged the project. And that's the stuff that I think Danny can really drill into, is these more honest takes on stuff. Not negative, because, Danny produces stuff with a great optimism and a great respect for the work, which I think makes him very popular with developers. But yeah, with that distance, that critical distance, that can actually kind of mean something and talk about the work well. Yeah,
so it's, from what we're seeing, features which, traditionally have not gotten attention on mega sites, and that is known Khaleesi. Like, that is that is just known, is finding life in these in YouTube, and that's fantastic. It also, I don't know if you ever had this, but G4, back when it existed, G4 had a series called Icons, and they would do what you would consider essentially a YouTube production at this point, where they would, do Molyneux, they would do, a specific developer.
They were sold to there was a British gaming channel on Sky, which I can never remember the name of. I think Danny actually even referenced it in a video he made. But there was a channel that was video game focused in the UK when I was a teenager, and that show was definitely sold to that channel. I remember watching that.
But yeah, a lot of, for those who aren't like neck deep in media, it's interesting because you go like, well, why don't the mega sites do stuff like this? Like, there's clearly an audience. It's like, well, yeah, but at scale, this type of stuff can support Danny, but it couldn't support one of your mega sites. Great example of this right now is the #1 show on television in the United States. If that show, you took those numbers and you went back, I think it's either 5 years or 10 years, it's the number 106th show on television.
Because of the diversification of
because there's a fracturing of the audience across, the spectrum. So when you look at something like the Danny stuff and go, this is amazing work. Like, why does this not exist on my favorite my favorite mega game site? It's because your favorite mega game site, with everything that they have to do to just keep their like head above water, can't allow something like that.
But also, it makes sense that there's a very small, passionate audience. Like, I think that's something that's lost in the ad model is, if I'm casually interested in a video versus if a video is my favorite thing on the internet, there's no difference, right? I make the same amount of money for the outlet. What's great about the Danny stuff is, I think I saw at the end of the final Doom video something like 4,000 Patreon backers, which is a tiny audience. But those are the people who love it and pay for it because they love it so much. That makes so much more sense than getting 0.00001 of a cent from everyone, no matter how much they like or dislike something.
But as a content creator, to have to follow the model that essentially you and I live in, right? Like, we live in the model that we have to create games, and then we have to put those games on the market, and we have to have people purchase those games. So they have to like the games, or at least be willing to take a chance on those games, for us to continue our livelihood. That is not the way journalism worked for, like, I mean, now
that's how it used to work, right? If you go back, like, buying a newspaper was about brand loyalty and about, I want to buy this newspaper because I think they're the guys who get the scoops, and they're the guys who politically maybe in the UK are aligned with my tastes.
Yeah, but what percentage of your nation would turn the tap off on the BBC if they could tomorrow? And then
that's what we're going to find out, I think, in the next 5 years. But that's it, right? That's the big shift.
Yeah, and and then what happens to those really talented BBC folks? I mean, like, it's for us, it's we have this has totally turned into a media conversation. I hope you're enjoying it.
This is off piste. I apologize, guys. I promise next week it'll be entirely video game of the year, discussion and arguments. This one's gone off the rails. But
totally off the rails. But I take something like 60 Minutes here in the States, and that is usually a showcase for the sort of the best journalists, and they have that freedom because 60 Minutes makes a ton of money, and so they can afford to do these really amazing 7-minute 14-minute pieces. And what was the laugh there?
Just the laugh at the duration, because, like, I mean, I remember you watched Newsnight while you were over here and just were completely confused as to why British news allowed like 20-minute deep dive on a topic every night. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm used to a minute 30 package, right? Like 330. When you watch 60 minutes, that's when you get your 7-minute package. So to watch, like you said, Newsnight rattle on for 20 minutes, and it's a good rattling on, but it's 20 minutes, much like this segment.
But slightly more informative and invaluable than this segment, right?
But so yeah, panels and public appearances and journalists doing good work in the game space.
That's how it's getting close to Christmas, can't you?
I mean I am fascinated to watch how this happens, because I actually do need to start getting involved in supporting that type of stuff, because I guess that's just the model of the future. If you or at least for the next foreseeable future, is if you appreciate a content creator, you have to put your money up. You can't expect them to be covered, or you can't expect to get that work because they're covered by a corporation, or you cannot support them, and then they do need to get covered by a corporation, and then the cycle all begins anew again.
Circle of life. By Thomas Was Alone in Volume.
And Earthshape. Thank you.
Buy a Pixel phone first, though.
1, 2, 3. I wanna thank you for reading the Freedom Mail again. Thank you for reading the Freedom Mail again.
Hello, Mike and Alexander. First, thanks for the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the podcast.
I've really enjoyed your impressions on games and the peek behind the curtain that you give us on the business side of game development. My question relates to breaking into the world of publishing. I won't go into specifics, but I have the good fortune to have a job that pays me quite well, and I've been involved in the game dev scene as a hobbyist for quite some time now. So I've seen a lot of indies that are making some great games, but may need a little help with funds. As a result, I'd like to get into that. I would like to get into publishing smaller scale indies that maybe need somewhere in the range of 5 to 10,000 to get their game across the line with assets or marketing, probably the latter, but I'm unsure the best way to go about this. Is this something that you think would be feasible? Do you have any experience with this side of the industry? What would the first steps be in becoming a small scale publisher? Thanks again for the show. Look forward to any insights that you have. Keep on casting those pods. Kind regards, Phil. I got something to say, so you go first.
So I guess my first thing is, do you want to actually be a publisher? Because publishers are more than the money. In terms of doing the marketing, in terms of doing maintaining a brand of their own. If you look at something like Devolver, yes, they are funding stuff, but also Devolver is a seal of quality. It means something to its audience. There's a very specific relationship there. And they're also guiding these projects and giving advice and being involved in the project. You maybe don't want to do all of that stuff. It's especially if you have a job. You're probably not going to be able to do that. What I wonder, if you're maybe, from the sounds of it, you're more of an investor. You're someone who has some cash and sees these games that you're pretty sure have a good chance of doing well. But like you say, they need a bit of money. I always go back to the example. Thomas Was Alone needed £2,000. Needed £2,000 to pay for the voiceover recording session and to cover the contractual stuff I had to do so that everyone involved in the project got the right share of the project and had all of this set up and it was all ready. And I want
to contextualize this properly. What year was that, Mike?
That was that was in the long lost history of 2012. Okay. And I needed $2,000. And at that point in my life, $2,000 was the most impossible, crazy amount of money. So I ended up crowdfunding for that. But so yes, small amounts of money can make a big difference and can be important. I think 5 to 10, yes, there's definitely indies for whom that would make a massive difference. You need to be realistic about what the chances are of games at that scale making you back the money, because you're not going to, you're not going to make money back necessarily 100% from the first sale. That's probably not fair on the developer. You probably want to do a percentage or something, which means the game's going to have to make a significant amount of money for you to at least break even, let alone...
Because Thomas Was Alone came out in what year?
2012. I just say 2012 before every sentence from now on, I think. But there are games, Alexander, that come out that are made very cheap and don't cost much to produce and then go on and do well. It does happen, but it's a crapshoot. It's very rare. It's probably about 5 to 10 a year.
So I think the odds have stacked less in that favor over the last several years. Certainly in the last 2. Certainly in the... I mean, what's the joke now? More games came out on Steam this year than have ever on the platform ever existed.
That's not true.
No, but many games have come out on Steam.
Yeah, but many of them are terrible, right? Like, I mean, God bless them for giving Jim Sterling something to do, but but there's a lot of bad stuff on there, and I think another person doing good work for the people. Taking one for the team. Jim Sterling very much takes one for the team, but I'm starting from the assumption that the person writing in has good taste. That's a big assumption, but I'm making that assumption that this person can see stuff and goes, no, that's something that's commercially viable. That's something that actually could make its money back. I think that's an assumption we have to make, right, in order to be able to give advice.
So we will. So for the duration of this conversation, we are going to assume that Phil has good taste and knows knows what a good game looks like. Now,
or not, if not good, profitable. Yeah,
what a profitable game looks like, because it's going to have to be profitable for him to make back his 5 to 10K that he is assisting this game with. So, for starters, 5 to 10K, yes, can make a difference. I have not seen one of those in a while. It is
one of your favorite games of this year was one of those.
Was it?
Your I'm about to lose all indie cred. The farming game.
I was going to say no. I know you were talking about Stardew Valley. I just wanted to see if you would be able to remember it, to recall it.
So Stardew Valley is a hobbyist project by one person.
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of game where 5 to 10,000 at the finish line would have made a difference. Now I don't know the details of that deal. I don't know. For all I know, the publisher there funded the entire development, but that also could have very easily been someone's hobby game that was good.
Okay, so let's go with this concept that let's go with a Stardew Valley-esque game. Like I've stumbled across something that is Stardew Valley, and
no one else notices it. You're the genius who spotted Stardew Valley. Yeah.
Brilliant. And it needs 5 to 10K to get across the finish line. Okay, so in that case, I would be asking, where is that 5 to 10K going? Because you said to get across the line with assets and marketing, probably the latter.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, that's not the finish line problem. The finish line problem is going through the process of getting it onto the platform and making sure that all the platform checks are getting done. Which is a process. I don't really know necessarily like where that 5 to 10K on marketing would.
Yeah, no, I think this may be this is definitely. So an example here was if you're developing a game, getting onto something like Steam. If you're a new developer, what's that mean? That means green light. So you need to make sure people know about your green light. So there's marketing involved there. There's discussion. There's getting your game in front of outlets. There's a lot of these smaller indie marketing firms who are not taking great amounts of money to just basically email out your press release, get your review copies into the hands of people who have bigger websites or YouTubers. There is definitely 5 to 10K of work that can be done either to get a game through Greenlight, or if you've managed to get through Greenlight, to get that game out in front of people. I think you may be falling into the trap of, because obviously your job is the meta stuff on the stores, of thinking very focusedly on that.
Right.
And also,
and at a much larger scale.
And that's the other part is we're in a very fortunate position where we've released some games now, so we do have access to press that is very, very obscured and difficult to get to if you are just starting out, That could also be to take it to events. That could be to get it, yes, that person's probably not buying booth space, but in order to show at Indiecade or in a mega booth or something like that, they still have to fly there. They still have to find somewhere to sleep. They need to, they need to eat while they're there. So
then I'm going to be the Uber jerk in this situation. Be like, why are you giving away publisher rights for 5 to 10K?
You wouldn't do public. Well, you have to is the short version. But I think the other thing here is this is not a publisher. I don't think Phil's going to be a publisher here. I don't think Phil's got the time or energy or effort or the money, frankly, to buy that. But he might be an investor. He can be someone who throws a few quid in, and then gets a little return back. The other option is to find a larger investment group and throw your money into the pot there. That's a way of spreading out your risk. So you're not putting in 5 to 10 grand into one game, but you're maybe putting 1,000 or 500 or 2,000 into several projects and seeing which pays off. There's lots of developers who do that with their money that they're sitting on. But yeah, I think this is specifically a scale issue that we're not perhaps best equipped to give advice on because we're not at that scale. And there's a lot of game developers who are making games at that scale and living off the money they make, 1-2 person teams, that this would be a really big help for and could be a deal that could be struck.
No, honestly, if you're out there and this 5 to 10K thing sounds like something you would be interested in, I would love to have you write in and tell us what you would use that for. What are the things that would help you get across the finish line? Because I'm genuinely curious.
I feel you may have been spoiled by where we're at.
The question is this something that you think could be feasible? Yeah, but then from me being Phil's friend, I would say, well, you need to make sure that you get 100% recoup on that. Or what is the structure of you? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm also thinking at it from Phil's side.
That's the thing is, can Phil afford to lose 10 grand? That's the other side of this, right? Is if you've got this surplus of money, can you afford to take some risks? Are you? And this is a serious question to ask yourself, Phil. Are you a patron of the arts, or are you trying to make a business? Because if you're a patron of the arts, there's lots of opportunities to spend money on quirky, really exciting, interesting, creative work that will not make money. And you see this in the film industry, for example. There's lots of independent films that are made that have no chance and no aspiration of being mega blockbuster hits. And there are people who fund them because they love that kind of work and they want more of that work to succeed and be out there. If that's you, Phil, then by all means, then ignore all this, find the coolest project you can and email them and offer them 5 grand. If it's more of a kind of a financial investment and you want to run a business, then yes, it becomes more tricky. But there's definitely projects out there that are nearing completion that you could jump in right at the end there and give them some help with a buffer.
There we did. Good job. We cleaned it up. Next up, esteemed Bithell and Slowinski. Good opening. I am currently in the process of trying to learn Unity and am more or less at the point where I can make a ball move around the screen. Mike said that he made Thomas Was Alone as a way of learning how to use Unity, which leads me to 3 fairly short questions. By the way, these are cheeky, and there's a part of me that thinks he's trying to trap us or get a snark answer, but I'm going to take it super seriously, right?
Okay. I like the ones where they squeeze in a few questions into one. It's a cheat.
So question number 1. Yeah. Is making a Thomas Was Alone-esque game still a good way to learn?
I would say that most games, the snarky answer from a lot of devs would be most games start off as Thomas Was Alone, then people add artwork to them. I've definitely seen one of my favorite things that pops up in my Thomas Was Alone searches is people, who are 2 days into a prototype with rectangles going, lol, made Thomas Was Alone. So I think making a simple platformer or something like that is definitely a great way to start learning. If you're asking me if that's a viable thing you could then go out and sell, that I don't think makes as much sense.
No, we'll get to that.
Oh, we'll get to that. That's coming up.
So question number 2.
Yeah.
Can Mike give me a Bithell blessing of making a platformer game about rectangles? So here's the part where I gotta be me and would advise Mike not to answer that before consulting our attorney. But I should point out the concept of trade dress and that Thomas Was Alone is a trademark filed with the United States Patent and Trademark Office and other entities. So could you make a game about rectangles? Sure. I'd advise against trying to sell such a product, if only to save personal embarrassment, because I have absolutely seen the similar-ish things go out there, and it's lol, Thomas Was Alone clone.
We've had some people try and clone Thomas Was Alone, and the community has jumped on them in an amusing way, but a horrible way. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So no, I would not give you my blessing to make another Thomas Was Alone game.
What did I say?
I also think, frankly, just on a cynical level, I don't think Thomas Was Alone would do well now. I think Thomas Was Alone was of its time. I mean, we definitely referenced 2012 earlier in the conversation. I think in 2012 Thomas Was Alone did well. I think if Thomas Was Alone had never been made and Thomas Was Alone was to be released today as it was, I'm not sure it would actually do very well. I think it would fall off of Steam. I really don't think it holds up. I mean, sorry, let me put that differently.
Wow.
I think it's a good game. I'm proud of it. I don't think it would be competitive on the Steam store right now, given the standard that's expected, given the enormous amount of games coming through. I don't think Thomas Was Alone. I think Thomas Was Alone was very much of its time, in air quotes. So I would say that even if we gave you the blessing, you wouldn't make a success of it anyway, because I don't think we'd make a success of it right now.
So trade dress is a form of intellectual property, and it covers... No. I want to take this seriously for 1 second here. Trade dress is a form of intellectual property, and it covers the visual appearance of things, and is actually quite important in other aspects as a safety standpoint as well. Coincidentally, I was talking about this the other day with Mike Futter. Mike, let's take a moment here.
Hi.
A red can with a Spencerian script and a swirl going through it is what product?
That's a Coca-Cola.
Okay. Now, what if I did that exact same thing, but I sold bleach?
You'd probably kill a few children.
And there we go. Trade dress, in some weird ways, serves a couple different purposes. There is the totally, cynical businessy kind of perspective on it, but it also does help ensure that something that is something you would take off the shelf and drink is not confused with something you would take off the shelf, drink and die. So yeah, trade dress does matter on a couple different levels, but yeah, I would actually recommend reading up on trade dress when you ask something along those lines. And then the last question was, what kind of legal hoops would I need to jump through to be able to use Mike's face as a tiny part of the game? So what you're asking for
that's
here,
actually an so you want I think there's questions of taste involved, are there?
So what you're asking for there is a name and likeness license or agreement, and it's fairly straightforward. Have your lawyers call our lawyers, and after months of painstaking discussion that will no doubt cost us both thousands of dollars or pounds. But honestly, don't don't use a real person's name or likeness in a game without their permission, and as it goes as far as to say without their written consent.
So how does that work? So I'm interested, just removing me from the equation here, but how does that work with parody? So like satire, does that open up any options here for people? Because I saw, for example, I saw some Donald Trump indie games, or Donald Trump added as like a playable character in some indie games. Are they using satire law there?
So in that case, you would need to argue they're a public figure, and this really starts getting to the legalness of this. So I have to now state I am not a lawyer. So if you would like to have further detail, please contact your attorney. But there would be an argument there that it's a public figure, so satire or something along those lines could work. Then if you try to sell that, you start ending up in a different territory. I think some of these might have been free content. Yeah.
Thinking about it, yeah.
So once you start trying to sell it, you start ending up in that license, that name and likeness license territory, especially something like Trump, right? The entire brand is based on that name, right? Like he sells that name. That's the entire foundation of the business. So yeah, if you were, if someone wanted to use your face, they would. But that's why. I really wish we had a sports person on right now, because this is the issue that EA Sports ran into. But when many athletes now join teams, whether it's FIFA or the NFL or whatever, they have to sign over their name and likeness to the organization, because that organization will then use it in video games.
They license out their faces to things,
their name and likeness to posters and everything, everything you can imagine. So yeah, that's the name and likeness license or agreement. So I would strongly encourage not to do something that
he should get £5,000 or £10,000 from someone.
There we go. Finite. Get in touch with Phil. Ask him for that 5 to 10 grand. Then get in contact with us for the name and likeness license, and you'll be good to go.
I on a personal note here, I would say, because I am a big Jim Sterling fan, so I do watch a lot of this kind of game. Please don't use my face. It'd be weird, and you won't sell any units anyway. That's my advice from one dev to another is make something original and creative that everyone thinks is way, way better than Thomas Was Alone.
That's actually one of the things that's been driving me up a wall this past year, especially with the amount of stuff that's coming out on Greenlight and flooding Steam, is the amount of, and you've brought this up, this is actually a really good way to wrap up the year before we do the game. The amount...
Nice positive note.
No, genuinely. The amount of talent that is out there right now is overwhelming. And to use that talent on, yes, you can use that talent on frivolous things. It's, that's your gift. You can use it how you want. But to use that talent in such a way that, you decide, I'm going to use Star Wars stuff or intellectual property from other major entities and think you can just get away with it because, either A, you're doing it for the lols, or B, you just don't understand how.
I think there's sometimes a fantasy that the person would turn around and say, "Oh, this is great. Let us, sell this."
Yeah.
That's never happened, right? Has that ever happened? I couldn't think of an example the other day when I was talking to someone about this. I don't think it's ever happened.
I think it has happened, but I mean, more often than not, it's happened because it's done quietly outside of the public eye.
That's fair. Yeah.
There's been moments where I think there was the Ghostbusters game, oh my God, it's got to be 10 years ago now, that leaked, and it looked better than any Ghostbusters game that was even out there. But you can't do that, and to spend so much time getting that done and then just having it all shot down when you could be working on something that's original. And genuinely, if you did something like that was original and put that out there, you might make enough money to be able to do something else, or to grow something else. It's not a massive corporation's not going to come along and shut you down in that situation. So that's just my thing. Like there's so much talent out there, and to see it, like, I get that it's fandom. I get how that works. But yeah, there's other opportunities in there, especially if you want a career out of it. There's so much opportunity. It's just not angering or getting in the way of the wrong people. So anyway, the conclusion of that letter was, thank you for the podcast. It's one of the highlights of my Mondays. Yours, Finite. So yeah, to go over those three things quickly. Maybe was the answer to your, is Thomas Was Alone-esque still a good way to learn? Maybe a good way to learn.
It's a good way to learn. Good first step before you slap some art on that. Yeah.
Okay. Then I would recommend reading up on trade dress and copyright for the answer to the second one, and then finally name and likeness license or agreement for the third one. If you have a burning question about games, game development, or just about the complexities of the universe, you can send those questions to us via contact@BithellGames.com. That's contact@BithellGames.com, through the YouTube comments of this show, or on Twitter by pinging @MikeBithell, @Slewinski, or @VolumeGame. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bithell Games Podcast. We can always use your support, so please provide reviews and 5 stars on iTunes, likes and subscribes on YouTube, and positive reinforcement on whatever other platforms you're hearing this show on whenever possible. This podcast was produced by Jonathan Downen. We'll be back next week. I'm Alexander Slewinski. Thanks again, and get in the last word, Mike.
Skipper.